It's the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast with your hosts, the Wolf and Action Jackson, who are keeping rock alive by talking classic rock, hard rock, progressive rock, heavy metal, 80s music, early MTV, UK vs. US chart success, and much more. This is the home of classic album and live concert reviews and your place for interviews with artists and legends. You're rocking with the Wolf. Hey out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to episode number 244 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf, and I will be joined, as I always am, by my partner in crime from the East Coast of the United States, Mr. Gary Action Jackson. We want to thank everybody who tuned in last week for our special reboot episode on Behind the Sun by Eric Clapton. As it turned 40, we also brought in his longtime guitar tech, Lee Dixon, to kind of tell us what was going on behind the scenes and tell us a little bit about the songwriters on that and the collaborators. It's a real who's who of great musicians. It was a fun one. We also, of course, had him on the previous episode with Alan Hunter talking about what it was like at Live Aid 40 years ago. And that was put out on a special date, not our usual Thursday, but on Sunday the 13th, as it was the 40th anniversary of Live Aid. But this week we're going to review an album by a band who we've covered here on the program. In fact, we've interviewed 3 former and current members of this band over the years. It's one that we came to in 1983 when they'd had some lineup changes and were kind of doing a change of pace as far as their songwriting goes. And that's prog legends Yes. And the album they made prior to the 90125, which is a big breakout and huge seller for them, was 1980's Drama. And it's called Drama because producer Hugh Padgham said there was just a lot of drama around. And they tried to record it in France, but there kind of became 2 camps. There was the Alan White, Chris Squire, Steve Howe camp, and then there was a Rick Wakeman and Jon Anderson camp. And Rick and Jon didn't really appreciate what was going on. They stopped after Alan White broke his ankle. They go back to England. They try to make it work, but they can't. So those 2 split. Just so happens, under the same management, at the same recording studio, you've got the Buggles, Trevor Horn and Jeff Downes, coming off their big worldwide hit Video Killed the Radio Star, who are a singer and a keyboard player. Just what they needed to replace in Yes. So they end up making the album Drama with 3 veteran members of Yes and 2 rookie members of Yes. And one, Trevor Horn, who really had to work hard and squeeze out some really high sounds to try to replicate that Jon Anderson vocal. Well, it got hit with some mixed reviews. I think for some, it was just they were not pleased that Rick Wakeman and Jon Anderson weren't there anymore. For some, I think that Yes was the old school 70s prog, and we were in the kind of the new post-punk 80s techno new romantic time, and they just didn't seem to fit in. They still sold out 3 nights at Madison Square Garden, and it was a tour that was booked before they had made the album. So despite all this confusion and lineup changes, they actually made a really killer record. But it did not even go gold in the United States after most everything had gone gold and platinum since 1971 in the US. So in a lot of ways, this was a step back. But in listening to the music, it's as quintessential Yes as you'll find. Yes, you have to get over that Trevor Horn is not exactly Jon Anderson, but he's doing his best. And Jeff Downes does a good job of kind of bringing Yes into the 80s and modernizing their sound. It wasn't one I knew well growing up, but I found it later in life. And I'm telling you, if you don't know this album, you're missing out on a really great Yes album. And that's what we like to do on this show. We like to introduce the folks to some hidden gems that we know about, and we love them so much, we want to share them with the world. But before we get into that, we do have a little bit of business to take care of. We always like to mention we are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a family of over 100 shows. You can learn more at pantheonpodcast.com or follow on socials at Pantheon Pods. You can find Pantheon Pods on SiriusXM, so you can listen to us in your car sometimes. And we have to give a big shout out to our worldwide sponsor, RareVinyl.com, who is based in the UK, folks, and they have all sorts of Yes and Yes-related material. And that's the great thing about Yes. Not only have they made dozens of albums and compilations and live albums, but every member has gone off to do solo albums. They worked in different bands. So there's a library of Yes stuff, and there's some rare Yes stuff, and there's cool picture disc Yes stuff, and rare import Yes stuff, and original print Yes stuff. All sorts of killer Yes stuff, and if you use the code UGLY, you can save 10% off one entire order. Not just one item, but one entire order. So if you find the original release of Drama, and you want to pay up for it, don't just save 10% off that. Save 10% off Close to the Edge. Save 10% off 90125. Save 10% off one of the box sets or an import, whatever your heart desires. Just go to Rare Vinyl, use the code UGLY, save 10%. Your record collection is going to thank you. Now back to Yes. I've really come to appreciate Yes as I've gotten older. I knew pop 80s Yes when I was young, and I thought that was cool. And then when I started to know some of their 70s radio hits like Roundabout, Seen All Good People, okay, I understand that's a little bit different Yes. And then you start to dive in a little deeper, Close to the Edge, Fragile, Tales from Topographic Oceans, Relayer. You really start to figure out, wow, these guys are extraordinary musicians. And you got to be able to keep up in Yes. And so there's a lot of infighting as far as what should be on the record, what shouldn't, whose song goes on, whose doesn't, that kind of thing. I think it's something that maybe Jon Anderson and Rick Wakeman were tired of doing by 1979, 1980. And that's why we've got Jeff Downes and Trevor Horn on their one and only, well, for the most part, one and only in the heyday Yes album, Drama, which I like, and I think you're going to like too, and so we're going to dive in here to Drama. Yes's 1980 release as it turns 45 here on The Wolf. Let's talk about an album that's turning 45. It took me a while to discover in my personal life, but one that I now hold in very high esteem, and that's Drama by Yes.
All right.
1980.
I kind of feel like even though this one is actually called Drama, perhaps maybe some of the other Yes records could have used this title as well.
Well, that's fair. But Hugh Padgham, who of course would go on to work with some of the biggest names of the 1980s, and they came in working with Roy Thomas Baker in France. That didn't work out, so then they decided, okay, we'll try again with some new guys, and then then they kind of go on a new different direction there. And Hugh Padgham, he worked with Phil Collins, he worked with Genesis, he worked with the Police on Synchronous, he worked with Paul McCartney and stuff like that. So he's a pretty good guy. He's like, there were so many little dramas going on always with this Yes band. It's kind of unbelievable, and a lot of people want to say, well, it's Anderson. It's Jon Anderson who stirs the pot and makes it so hard. I'm like, yeah, he has his own agenda, right? But he's not the only issue.
Correct. So the numbers don't lie here. They had, up until this point, they had made 9 studio albums with 5 different lineups and 9 total musicians. So there's always just churning going on. I think the problem is nobody here wanted to be that sounds good. Everybody they had their own vision. They just were not going to accept being told what to do. Then that's what you end up butting heads. But on the other side of it, that's how you come up with music that's all over the map. Is you have individuals kind of duking it out to see what's going to end up on the record.
That's right. It's not just like, hey, that's great, let's go with that. It's like, no, you got to challenge each other. Like,
correct.
That doesn't fit, or that could be better.
Yeah, that sucks. We're not doing that. Then somebody's going to get butthurt and walk away. But the other thing too was they already had, when they were working on the original record in Paris, then that fell apart. They already had a tour booked. Uh-oh.
Right. Yeah. And although in some ways it was successful, in some ways it wasn't. It didn't do as well as they'd hoped in America, but it actually did better in America than it did in England. So that's part of the story as well. Mm-hmm. Let's just kind of go back in time. Yes is a musician's band. You got to have some serious chops to be in Yes. And you talk about the lineup changes, but some of it was people out and then back in, like Rick Wakeman. At this point, it was founding member Jon Anderson on vocals, founding member Chris Squire on the bass. Chris was never not in Yes from the time it was formed to the time he died.
Right.
You had Alan White on the drums, who had been there since, was it Tales from Topographic Oceans? Was it Close to the Edge? It was, Bill Bruford, who is also an incredible drummer in his own right, went on to do King Crimson after Yes. He was maybe a founding member, but then he split at some point and they picked up Alan White, and then Alan White never gave up the gig for 45 years until the day he died. So it was fairly stable in some parts. Steve Howe had been in the band, and was it Peter Banks who had been the original guitar player in Yes?
Right.
But Steve had been there since like the 3rd album, which was the Yes album, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Correct.
And then the one, because every band always has one spot that is hard for them to keep stable. For Yes, it's the keyboard player. Eventually, it kind of became everything for Yes, but really, honestly, I mean, it's the keyboard player.
Yeah.
It was added out. Tony Kaye was the first one. He eventually left. They brought in Rick Wakeman. He's this wonder kid. He's fantastic. He's amazing. The people love him. Then he's like, I think I'll go do some solo stuff. So they bring in Patrick Moraz for one album, Relayer, and then Rick Wakeman comes back for Going for the One and Tormato. Now, most people will tell you that is the classic Yes lineup, who only made, I think, about 4 albums together in the 70s. And then after they got through with the Union thing and the 90125 lineup, they went back in the 90s and the early 2000s to this lineup of Anderson on vocals, Squire and White on the rhythm section, Wakeman on keyboards, and Steve Howe on guitar.
Okay. Now, just for context here, Close to the Edge was Bruford, and then Alan White showed up for Tales.
Tales for Topic Ever Ghost.
Right.
Okay.
But
okay.
yeah, you're right. That's the classic Yes lineup. That's, when you think about that, that's really who you're talking about. It's funny how Downs comes in for one record, leaves, goes to join Asia, but now he's been there since 2011.
Yeah, he's the longest, I think, consecutively tenured.
Yeah.
Or keyboard player in Yes. I think that's right. Yes. So, right. So, all right. So this classic lineup, which has had good success with Going for the One and Tormato, and they had been touring well and things like that. They go to France to work on the new album. It seems that Jon Anderson and Rick Wakeman are writing together, the two of them, more than they ever have before. The other three, Howe, Squire, and White, think their songs are too light, too folky, and sometimes Jon Anderson could write some folk songs. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not really for us. And so they start writing like heavier, more proggy and heavy metal kind of stuff. So much so that like Rick and John would come in early to work in the studio. They wouldn't come in until way late, including Roy Thomas Baker, the alleged producer. He was kind of siding with Howe, White, and Squire. Mm-hmm. So that is starting to upset Jon Anderson, and eventually he and Rick go down to the pub to kind of get loaded, and he's like, "Oh, Rick, this is not the band I wanted to see go on." And Rick's like, "Well, yeah, I'm with you. I can go do, my own thing. I did The Six Wives of Henry VIII. I did Journey to the Center of the Earth. I did King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. I can go be Rick Wakeman. I don't have to be in Yes." Plus, he's fooling with his toys, as we know from the Tormato book. Mm-hmm. He's creating new musical instruments and working on some stuff like that. So then Alan White breaks his foot roller skating with Richard Branson, as one does at the end of the 70s.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
He can't play for 6 weeks, so they leave France. They go home for Christmas. And then they try to reconvene at the first of the year, like in March. Said, all right, I know you guys aren't getting along. Let's try to put it back together. It doesn't work, and Anderson and Wakeman leave. Now, they've had a few different keyboard players already, but people love Rick. He's got the cape game working big. He's got that long blonde hair. He's kind of this magician behind the keyboard. But because he's behind all those keyboards, you can replace a keyboard player pretty easily. At this point, you've never really had to replace a lead singer before. Not only not in Yes, but in most bands. You don't replace the lead singer. It's the one thing that can't be exactly the same, right?
Correct. And unfortunately, Anderson has a very distinctive voice.
Very distinct, very high, that not a lot of people could replicate, right?
Right.
So that's a problem.
And I would say that's probably a problem for most fans. You can replace just about anybody, but it's tough with the lead singer. That's what you identify the song with.
Exactly. It's very distinct. A guitar, a keyboard player, play through the same stuff, play it the right way. The average person is not going to know the difference at all. Correct. You're going to have a real audiophile. That's not quite what Wakeman was doing there. That's not it. The only thing is, Yes fans, some of them are like that. So
right. Yes, correct.
So now you're replacing somebody huge, talent and personality wise, and then the voice, the one that's been on every single Yes album. And so, Anderson called it a loss of respect for each other. was going on. And so eventually he's like, no, that's it. And I think, did Anderson go make a little music with Vangelis at this time?
Yeah.
I think that's right.
I think you're right.
So he went off and does that. Rick can kind of go do whatever the heck he wants. He's Rick Wakeman, and he did some TV stuff. Meanwhile, they've got to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? We need more members of the band. So the threesome, Howe, Squire, and White, kind of kept going, kept making stuff. They're at Townhouse Studios, and around that time, the Buggles, famous for Video Killed the Radio Star, which was a big hit in 79. I didn't realize it was number one in 16 countries around the world, including the UK. That's a pretty big hit. I mean, we know it because it was the first song ever played on MTV, but that's not till August of 81.
Right. That's what I was just trying to look here. So that was already out. That was already a big hit before they even started on this record. Okay, got it. Now the other thing is, who are the Buggles? It's really just the two of them, right?
That's right.
There were other people shown in the video, but Jeff and Trevor Horn are the Buggles.
Well, yeah, but also there's a guy, Woolley is his name. I don't think was he in the video? I don't know if he was in the video. Bruce Woolley played guitar, and he did some backing vocals, and he helped write Video Killed the Radio Star, if I'm not mistaken, which is, the one you want to write.
Yeah, this is credited to Downs, Horn, and Bruce Woolley. Yeah.
Right. So now I think he left the band at some point. Maybe he wasn't in the video. I'm not 100% sure there. One of the women singing on the track is actually a woman who, is that Tina Charles maybe? She, I think, also helped fund, get this thing off the ground kind of thing.
Okay. Well, on the single artwork, it's just the two of them.
Right. It's just the two of them. So, and also, I think in the album, maybe. So maybe he left for a little while, maybe at the wrong time. He created some kind of new band at that time because they had a few songs that went into the charts in the UK. They had like 3 or 4 songs that actually charted. The Camera Club is what Woolley founded right after he left the Buggles. So he helped on a lot. He played on a lot of stuff, but he wasn't there for the video, I don't think. And then Russell Mulcahy was the guy who directed their first 2 videos, which is kind of amazing. And apparently Hans Zimmer makes a brief appearance in the video. Okay, so then on to, because they do well with Video Killed the Radio Star, Brian Lane starts to manage them, who's already managing Yes. And then all of a sudden they're kind of working out of the same offices, and maybe they're even in the same studio. And then Squire hears them working on some stuff. There's a song they call We Can Fly From Here. And he's like, oh, you know what? We could make that a Yes song. We can turn that into a Yes song. Why don't you come down and rehearse with us, and we can turn it into something else. And
they were big Yes fans too, right?
Well, Down certainly was.
Yeah.
I don't know if Horn was, and certainly Trevor was awfully nervous, but the time came, it's like, okay, we're not just going to do this one song. We're going to have you come in the band because we need a keyboard player. You've got this killer keyboard player. We need a singer, and you're a good singer. And if you could just sing a little higher, then we've got it here. Yeah. In fact, they didn't even know that Anderson wasn't in the band anymore.
Okay, so who's they?
Trevor and Jeff.
Oh, okay, yeah. They were not privy to that. They just thought they were coming down to hang out and maybe contribute a little bit, not actually be part of this band.
Help write a song, yeah. Suddenly they realize, hey, they're asking us to join the band, which is that's got to be tough. Like, you just had your own worldwide hit single. And now the next year, you're supposed to join this band. Yes, it's a big band, and it's a band that, I know Jeff grew up like in college and stuff listening to, and we had him on the show, and he's talking about how he's listening to Close to the Edge while he was in college and Leeds and stuff like that. In a way, that's a dream come true. Oh my God, we're going to join Yes, but at the same time, it's like we have our own thing, and now we have to put that away.
Right.
To join this thing that already exists where there's all these huge expectations, and Trevor Horn has to squeeze his body to sound like the falsetto Jon Anderson. Not an easy thing to do, but I think he realized, look, this offer doesn't come around a lot, and this is a real opportunity to play huge gigs. Because honestly, the Buggles didn't play a concert until like the 2010s. They were kind of a studio creation. And they never toured together back in the day. And now, obviously, Yes is a live band. And they went and played 3 sold-out nights at Madison Square Garden. on this drama tour. In fact, they got an award for selling it out 16 straight times since 1974. So you walk into this band and yes, they're already successful, but then you got to go play 3 nights at MSG?
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
In front of fans who are very discerning too.
That's right. So that's kind of where they are. Now, Hugh Padgham's like, there's so much tension and there's always full of dramas everywhere. But like, the music's put together in different locations, and I went past RAK when I was just in London here. It's in St. John's Wood. It's just north of Regent's Park. Took a picture of it there because Mickey Most has a little blue plaque on there as well, but it still says RAK right there. Steve Howe went there to record about 90% of his guitar work, just kind of like by himself. And he said, I had total freedom. I went away and recorded 90% of the guitars on my own in a London studio and then went back and presented the band. At first, people said, your guitars sound too bright and trebly. I said, no, shut up and just use them. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I don't get how that works just because the way the songs are put together. How do you record just your part alone?
I know, without a track, without a timing thing. I mean, how do you do that? Well, they made it work. I mean, his guitar is quintessential Steve Howe on this album. It's very Steve Howe. It's very Yes. Yeah, it all kind of worked out in the end. Poor Trevor Horn. He went and got married. And then 2 hours later, he was back in the studio. He was going to go to Miami Beach for 2 weeks, but instead it was like 3 days in Bournemouth and Steve Howe came along. I'm like, well, I don't know about that. But they said they had a good time, actually, and they completed the album's mix down by themselves, the two of them.
What are you complaining about? I gave you 2 hours.
Exactly. Go get married and then come back. We got work to do, right? But Trevor Horn here is starting to show his producer chops a little bit. Of course, he would go on to become a huge producer and doing stuff of the day like ABC and Frankie Goes to Hollywood, not to mention, of course, 90125 by Yes, their biggest selling album of all time. But it was kind of through this that he discovered he was really born to be a producer, not born to be the front man of a big worldwide band.
That's got to be tough. That has to be tough because there's expectations on the lead singer.
Oh yeah.
As far as like, media and just being out in front of everybody. And yeah, if you're more comfortable in the studio, that's got to be a tough gig. I always thought it was a little interesting that he did this as the lead singer and then stayed on to produce the next record, taking not a step back, but kind of a step to the side, and everybody was cool with that.
It's always surprising, yes. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. Of course, he had to let Jon Anderson back in the band. Like, oh yeah, I kept your seat warm. Here it is. Now I'm going to go on the other side of the glass. I'm going to tell you what to record and how to record it.
Exactly. And when you could probably do that a little better, or it's an interesting dynamic.
Very, very interesting, yes. Now, of course, once Anderson was back in the band, Yes never played anything from this album from 83 or whenever that lineup came back until his departure in 2008. They never played any of this with Jon Anderson. He said, I'm open to rehearsing that. And then in the end, it's like, nah, we're not going to do that.
But isn't that kind of par for the course? Doesn't Steve Howe have problems with stuff that he doesn't play on?
Yes, he does. So, that's for sure.
Which is too bad because I guess making that choice kind of pushed this record into obscurity for a while.
A little bit, yeah, because they wouldn't play it over time there. And eventually they did start to work stuff back out from it, especially once Jeff was back in the band. And then, for a brief time there, it was Steve, Jeff, Alan, and Chris, 80% of the band that made the album, with various replacement singers. So then they could break this stuff out. And then at some point, I think it was 2016, they played it all in its entirety. They've been doing this album series now for many years, where they'll pick one or maybe two albums that they'll play in their entirety. This fall, they're going to do Fragile in its entirety, and I'm going to check that out. We might do a show on that.
All right.
But this one, I feel like it gets, between what you said, Anderson wouldn't play it for 25 years or whatever it was. Also, I think the public reacted to no Rick Wakeman and no Jon Anderson. No, thank you. That's just too different. And it was the first one not to go gold and platinum since the start of the decade. In the US, that is. So, although I think, in my opinion, it's an incredible Yes album. It's so very Yes. And they kind of took everything that they learned from over a decade of being Yes and put into these 6 songs. I think it's fantastic. And I think it's aged very well. But at the time, I think people reacted like, that's not the same thing. And, the whole new wave thing is going on right now. And there's, the end of punk is here. And I don't know if this is really one that I want. Now, the good news is Roger Dean was back doing the artwork again. It was his first one since Relayer.
Right.
I think Hypnosis had done going for the one and
Tormato. Yeah, yes. Correct.
And so Roger was back with his otherworldly designs, although he decided this time not to make any kind of fantastic animals. He wanted to show real things that you could actually see in the world. So it's really, I remember the first time I saw it, I was a little disappointed because it's not that fantastic, right?
Correct.
It's just some black cats in the foreground chasing some white birds. But when you get into it, it's pretty stark. There's a lot going on. In the foreground, there's earth with the black cats and the birds. There's a bit of water between some huge rocks out there, like a little island of rocks that then have some trees on it. And beyond the rocks, there's these glaciers and icebergs out there. And then if you fold the whole gatefold open, what would be on the back is, it almost looks like coral growing up out of the sand. It's a pretty stark and interesting. It's a little dark. It's very gray and dark in a lot of places. I think that's probably why I didn't love it compared to a lot of the other stuff that he did for Yes. But as a whole, it's actually very interesting. And in the last decade or so, he's kind of called it one of his very favorite paintings of all time. Certainly one that he did for Yes. So like the album, I feel like it's aged well also.
And then you got to wonder too, like what's going on with the cats and the birds. Does that mean nothing? Or is that like the three that are left in the band chasing the other two out? Or what's maybe nothing. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But yeah, I agree with you. It is kind of like when you first look at it, you're like, oh, is that it? There's no dragons or anything. And then, but yeah, it's sometimes simple is better. And that is interesting that Dean calls it one of his favorites.
Yeah. In 2013, he said, yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite paintings. And I stirred it up and it came out in a way that I guess the training and good luck work together to make, there's a lot going on it. A lot of it very dark and there's bright bits in the other. So it's kind of a dichotomy there. And that's kind of what Yes came to with this album, but heck of a good album. Now it reached number 2 in the UK, which is great. Only number 19 in the US, but yeah, it's the first one, is the lowest charting one since the Yes album in 71. So over a decade, Yes had been going very strong and selling out not only arenas, but stadiums in the US in the 70s, thanks to their proggy over-the-top sounds.
And that's something I never realized. As a kid, we came into this with 90125. It was a big hit. I knew that they had been around for a long time. I never knew they were this big.
Exactly. No, they were huge on AOR radio and on AM radio. They just got all sorts of support. I mean, and we were talking about this with several guests. In the 70s, like the level of musicianship for rock bands was huge. It was unbelievable. Some of these bands who were just making this music that would still get on the radio, some very dense and intense, but it worked at that time. And then it was in the 80s between AOR taking off and MTV. It's like, okay, no more of these 10, 20-minute epics. You got to distill that down to about 4 minutes. But this was still Yes being Yes. And I think the album is a fantastic Yes album.
So if you're a Yes fan in 1980, you go to the record store, this album's coming out because they used to have those, chalkboards telling you when
they came
releases.
Out. That's right.
Yeah, correct. You grab this thing. Do you have any idea that this isn't the same lineup?
Fair question.
Are there articles about it? Like, I don't know, because I kind of feel like, especially on this first track, you're really trying to fool me.
Well, yes. I mean, that's the thing. And look, you look back at all the reviews, they were all mainly very positive to say, hey, Trevor sounds uncannily like Jon Anderson, or like you'll never know the difference between Jeff Downes and Rick Wakeman. And so they're like, this is maybe even more Yes than Yes. Like they decided not to take it in a new wave or punk direction. They wanted to make sure the faithful were happy. And this is very true to a Yes album. So it was almost like a backhanded compliment. Like, we can't believe how much this sounds like Yes. Like, this is so Yes that we didn't expect it to be this Yes kind of a thing. But look, it's always tough to replace a lead singer. I think Trevor did his very best, and he gets up high on some of these songs. But see, that was probably also Yes's MO, thinking, well, look, A, we need to sound like the old singer, or people are going to dismiss this as like, this is not Yes, this is not what I want. But B, they're also like, well, one day we might just get Jon back in the band. And then he's going to have to sing these songs, so let's make them in the register that works for Jon, so that, when he comes back, he can do it. Now, he never did it, but he could have.
Right. And that was a safe bet back then, that you were going to see these people again in the band.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, Rick had come and gone again, and then he's going to come again, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Hi, this is Steve Howe of Yes, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
All right, well, let's jump into these songs, because honestly, this is one of my very favorite Yes albums. As far as if I'm just going to put on some Yes and I'm going to listen to an album, I find it very listenable and I dig it. Plus, there was a 2004 reissue that's about an hour and 20 minutes long that not only has single versions on it and some, I would call them more than demos, because they did maybe put some vocals on them at some points, and some of it was the Anderson stuff that they were working on.
From the France sessions.
That's right, and the March sessions, so instead of 6 songs, which is what the original album is, there's 16 songs on there. And honestly, there's some good stuff to go through on there. So I encourage anybody to get that. That box set I got that had everything from the beginning through, I guess, Big Generator. One of the best investments I ever made, because you can just kind of go through it's got all the re-releases with all this extra stuff on there. So it's just a lot of music that you can digest and kind of see where the band was.
Yeah. So the original is 6 songs, 3 on each side, with a total runtime of like 37 minutes.
That's right.
So very sparse.
And yet dense. So much going on.
Right. But and only really 2, track 1 and track, I guess, 4 are kind of the longer ones, but they keep it kind of tight for the rest of these.
Yeah, for the most part. That's right. Yeah. So Machine Messiah is all over 10 minutes long. Into the Lens is over 8, though there's a single version that's less than 4. So they really cut out most of it. But yeah, let's go into side 1. Machine Messiah. This starts out, Steve Howe's basically doing some heavy metal riffs there.
It definitely starts off pretty strong, because it sounds heavy, kind of lightens up a little bit, but the beginning part, it definitely feels like, ooh, this is darker and heavier than I would expect from Yes.
Well, that's right. But you got to remember, though, this comes out in August of 1980. The Wall had come out in December of 79. And that was probably dominating some airwaves, and it's very dark and ominous and got some heavy stuff in there. So maybe that was just kind of the time. But it's very heavy. And then comes the brightness. And then you hear Trevor, he's very close to Jon's register, but he also has the others singing around him.
Right.
So it sounds very much like Yes.
Yeah, I think it's Horn and Squire who are doing the heavy lifting on the parts, on the main vocal parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it almost sounds like they're doubling one voice, but it's the 2 of them there. Yeah, if you didn't know, you'd swear that was Anderson.
Run down the street where the glass shows that summer has gone. Agent the doorways resenting the pace of the dawn. All of them standing in line, all of them waiting for time. From time to bring healer, the Machine Messiah is born.
Absolutely you would. Yeah. And then I think that was the point.
Correct.
Now, apparently, despite this being like an over 10-minute long epic, this was all written in one day. And Downs apparently loves this song, and he feels like it's the quintessential song that blended the 3 Yes veterans with the Buggles.
Okay. He is ripping it up on the keyboards there.
Absolutely. And there's good interplay back and forth between he and Steve Howe. A lot of times, because they're kind of that mid-range there, you got Trevor up high singing. You've got the bass down low, and then here this mid-range is the keyboards and the guitar. They can fight for space sometimes, kind of like Rush had problems with that in the 80s.
Right.
Geddy's keyboards and Alex's guitars fighting, but actually they interplay and go back and forth really well. And there's that big fat jam in the middle, and there's some trading back and forth. It's fun, and it's very good, yes.
And that's the tough part. When you've got all the instruments that are basically lead, finding space in there is tough without it being just a mess.
No doubt. And Chris Squire is always going to be laying down some sick bass that you...
Correct.
Underneath it, it's all down there. So you've got to find your space on top of that to put your little bits in. Steve Howe was a master of that. And Jeff, considering he was still pretty young at the time, comes in, and I think he does a heck of a job.
They did make one video for this, and I saw one or two kind of live bits. He looks like he's 11. It's funny to see.
I know. And he has 14 or 15 keyboards around him, so he's behind this massive stuff. And yeah, he looks like a kid.
Yeah.
But then after they do the middle trading part, then there's a spare acoustic piece in the middle of it that Yes could do, and they go back to the melodic parts. It's an epic. It really is. And then it ends with a bit of that kind of frantic machine kind of music, kind of industrial kind of thing, like, that's what it's all about. But to me, it's a heck of a way to come out and start a new album with a new lineup, really. A new lead singer always freaks people out.
Yeah, it's definitely a strong track. I think it gives everybody something. Like if you're an old school Yes fan, it's got it's instrumental parts. It's long enough. It's kind of epic. What are we talking about here? Is this like, the machines will take over? Is this, Orwell we're referencing? There's a lot of stuff going on. I think if you are a Yes fan, this makes you happy in 1980.
Absolutely. And sometimes their lyrics, they're quasi-mystical. Sometimes they make sense. Sometimes not so much. Cables that carry the life to the cities we build. Threads that link diamonds of light to the satanic mills. Ooh. Okay, a lot going on there. Maybe we'll change, offer the chance to finally unlearn our lessons and alter our stance. Escape to freedom, I need to be there, waiting and watching the tables are turning. I care to see them walk away, and to be there when they say they will return. Machine, Messiah, the mindless search for a higher controller. Show me the strength of your singular eye. Maybe that's about satellites watching you. I don't know.
Right.
And look, I mean, some of this history dictating symptoms of ruling romance, claws at the shores of water upon which we dance. It's a little wordy. I mean, it's not just a malt shop with my girlfriend kind of stuff. This is kind of heavy stuff, but you don't always get exactly what it's all about. And I think Anderson wrote a lot of the lyrics, so now it's on Trevor Horn to write a lot of this stuff.
Right. Yeah. I think because I was looking at that too. It looks like Anderson was in charge of all the lyrics. And that's another tough part too. When you replace a member of the band, but somebody who contributes to the songwriting, that's a real tough deal. Because then it's, everybody's looking at you to fill that part also.
Right, exactly. So incredible way to start the album. 10-minute epic, more than half the first side. And then there's a song that's not even a minute and a half long. So it's a weird way to start. Over 10.5 minutes, and then not even 1.5 minutes. White Car. What did you think of this one after Machine Messiah?
When they go into the third track, you say, wait, what was that? Was that was that part of the?
I thought it was an
song?
Intro. Yeah,
right. Yeah. How was it only 2 minutes and change? That's not a Yes song.
Well, that's right.
It's interesting. It's a little change of pace. Are we talking about Gary Newman?
Apparently so. So I'm listening to it. I'm like, okay, it kind of has a somewhat classical opening to it. And it's almost like a TV intro or credits for a movie or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Where you see like Dustin Hoffman walking down the street, grabbing an apple off the stand. Hey, I'll get you back later. That kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then there's only 4 lines of vocals.
Right. And I thought this was just going to be an instrumental too. And then you have lyrics at the end. And so it's just a very short song. But I guess Newman did have a white Corvette that he would drive around in. And he's somebody who I never really paid that much attention to because he had basically the one hit.
In America.
In America, correct. Yeah. But I guess he was a huge influence on the new wave scene.
Huge in the UK, huge in Europe. Still to this day, he is
Yeah.
revered, and he can tour to this day. In America, it's cars,
Right.
and that's it. But so I'll give you all the lyrics. I see a man in a white car, move like a ghost on the skyline. Take all your dreams and you drive them away. Man in a white car. That's it. That's the song.
I see a man in a white car, move like a ghost on the skyline. Take
So, I mean, I guess it's great to see him doing, yes, his record company gave him the Stingray. I guess he was doing well at this point. So interesting, weird. I bet they didn't play that one much unless they played it between other songs.
Well, I think I've got a note here that I guess they would use this as kind of a filler, not a filler, but like a bridge, and then Downs would kind of intersperse some more keyboard action in there. So they made it a solo for him, I guess.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, give him a chance to kind of noodle, and then
I mean, he's
Steve
got
can
19
switch out his
of these
guitars.
things.
Yeah,
Let's,
yes.
yeah, come on. Let's get our money's worth out of all these keyboards you brought.
That's right. Yeah, of course, Jeff would eventually set the Guinness World Record for most keyboards on stage with age when I think he had 28 or 29.
Correct. And in the video for the last track,
Tempest Fugue. Yeah.
you can kind of see he's surrounded, but I'm like, that's only a hint of what's to come on the Asia tour
Yeah,
with the
exactly.
gear that you're going to bring.
Well, and stuff, the technology is moving forward, and the Fairlight is around where you could put samples in there and record it and play them back. And so that's starting to become a thing. And of course, Yes is going to be on the forefront of that. Rick Wakeman was always on the forefront of that. That's for sure.
Right.
So they kind of have to continue with that. Now, on Does It Really Happen, which is the next song and the last song on the first side. Okay, again, I think this is very good, Yes. Squire comes out of the gate, and Steve has some big power chords, and there's some big crashes. But I feel like Jeff is modernizing Yes with his flourishes, alongside some classic Yes melodizing. I don't know if melodizing is a word, but it's what I wrote down. So it's modernizing alongside the melodizing.
You may be witnessing the birth of a new word here.
Perhaps.
But I think that's the real trick when somebody new comes into the band, especially somebody who is, I'm guessing Downs is younger than grumpy old Rick. So you've got somebody who is more into, classic music or classical music. Now you got somebody who's younger. They're a little more, they're electronic forward, new wavy. So yeah, it does change. Even though you're playing the same parts, maybe even playing some of the same equipment, you're putting your own touch on this and kind of making this more of a modern sound here. And I think that was the big thing, that when Horn and Downs came in, it's that they're bringing the new wave with them.
Right. Yes. And they're not changing the band. They're just bringing these pieces along.
Yeah.
To make it there. And I think the good news for Trevor is this song is less like John for him. It's not unlike John. But Machine Messiah was like, okay, well, that could have been Jon Anderson for all I know.
Right.
This is more Trevor. This is more along his, again, Anderson could do it.
Yeah, more in his range, though.
But yeah, it's more in his range. And Steve and Jeff double each other for a bit, which I think is very cool. It gives some good sound. Now, it was in sessions for Going for the One.
Okay.
And Alan White actually came up with its drum pattern. There is a version with Anderson singing different lyrics. And we think that Patrick Moraz was on keyboards for it.
Okay.
It was recorded, but then it was shelved. And then Horn and Downs came in and they made changes to the arrangement. And then they wrote Horn and Chris wrote new lyrics. And I think it was released as Everybody's Song on the remaster of Tormato, the Jon Anderson version, which of course I also have in that big, beautiful box, clamshell box that I got. So again, so much to explore with Yes. It's so much fun with all the different sounds, all the different players, all the different artwork.
I have to go check that out because now I'd be interested to see what was the same, what was different, how you changed that. I do like that concept of, we've got this thing hanging around. I think it'll work for this. Instead of saying, no, it has to be new.
Right.
This will work. We just need to maybe rework it a little bit.
This will do nothing for our listeners on the road, but this is the box, and you can see how thick it is.
Yeah.
But it's got Roger Dean stuff all over it, and then you open it,
Ooh.
and it's in order, Time and a Word, and the Yes album. Hey, I'm making a mess. But yeah, it has all of them, and then when they reworked them, that's the one you got. You got like the new version of it. It goes to Big Generator, and that's it, because Union was a bastardization. So Talk is the one I guess I don't really have. And I said I would say this. I always denigrate Talk, but I haven't really listened to it. I never owned it, and I haven't really given it a chance. It's the one that made them think, okay, we're going to go back to classical Yes and leave Trevor Rabin to go do soundtracks and stuff. But I guess I should be more fair, and we should listen to Talk at some point. Maybe not review it, but listen to it.
That wouldn't be the worst idea, only because I always kind of wrote this one off as the one that was different. It was the Horn and Downs one. They only ever made one together, and it's like, yeah. Do I really want to listen to this? But then you get into it and you say, nah, I like this record.
It's fantastic. I know. Well, and they did eventually come back together for Fly From Here in 2011. They had a replacement guy in, a singer, I think it's Benoit David, who had been in a Yes cover band or tribute band, whatever you want to call it. And Oliver Wakeman was in the band. And then they decided we're going to bring Jeff Downs back to the band. And we talked to Oliver about that.
Yeah.
But then they're like, okay, well, now we've got the drama back. Why don't we put Trevor in and we'll just make another record from that lineup, which was awesome. It just wasn't given much of a chance. And so they did that once, later days. But you're right. This is the only one that they made in the heyday with this lineup.
This is like the George Lazenby James Bond.
Kind of. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
But there's a big jam at the end of Does It Really Happen with some sick bass from Squire. And I'm like, this is still quintessential Yes. It's not the exact same lineup, but there's no way you would hear this and not think it was Yes.
Correct. And then I have a note in here. Is there a xylophone in there somewhere? I mean, it sounds like that to me, but I mean, who knows? With the keyboard, you could have just kind of put that in there, but it definitely sounds like that.
Yeah, maybe it was programmed. I don't know. Possibility. Who knows?
But it's cool to hear something else thrown in there too. A little bit of a different sound.
Yeah, definitely. And, Steve is playing with different things. He's playing a Les Paul on Machine Messiah and Run Through the Light. He did a Gibson Les Paul Gold Top on Does It Really Happen? He's got some pedal steel and Fender Telecaster on Into the Lens. He does the Stratocaster on Tempest Fugit. So he is just trying to figure out which one best fits what we're trying to do with each song.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if he played that the red one, the Les Paul that he plays in Asia.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But that's side one. 2 big songs in 1.5 minutes of White Car. It's distributed a little bit more equally here on side 2. We go into the Lens, which was the first single. Although, like I said, Into the Lens is almost 8.5 minutes on the album. It's not even 4 minutes, the single version of it. So they trimmed the heck out of it to make it work on the radio. It was backed with Does It Really Happen? It did not chart anywhere. So that's probably led to part of why the album didn't do well, because you've got no lead single. You've got nothing on the radio saying, hey, this is definitely it. Now, I guess it didn't. Buggles eventually did a version of it called I Am a Camera.
Right. Off Adventures in Modern Recording.
Off Adventures in Modern Recording, the second album that came out in 1981. We'll talk a little bit about that once we're done with this album. And it, got to like 46 in the Netherlands or something like that. Or
interesting that's what they would pick, because of all of the songs on this record, this is the one that sounds less like Yes.
Heart, I could never let you go, and you always let the feeling show. Let us, how you never broke your heart, how you lose the
sorry, it went to number 11 in the Netherlands, maybe 46 in the UK or something like that. But look, you think it sounds less like Yes than anything else on the album?
I think this one sounds, yes, correct. This one to me it sounds like, it doesn't sound like Yes only because the vocals are more horn singing like you would hear him on, I guess, Video Killed the Radio Star, because that's all I would be familiar with at this point in time. But yeah,
Right.
it's different. It's got Yes parts to it, but it's not, to me, it's not really a Yes song.
Okay, yeah, and Trevor is singing high, but you're right, he's not necessarily...
He's not trying to impersonate Anderson
Jon
on this
Anderson.
track.
That's
Yeah.
right. And they use a vocoder in there to kind of pipe in, I am a camera at some
Right.
points, you know.
Yeah. Which I had to go and figure out what that was, because I'm like, now wait a minute, you can't just drop that on me and then go from there.
Exactly.
And so
I want to know what you're using to make that noise.
Yes, I mean, I have to, because it's fun. And I think, again, too, it's one of those, did he have it hanging around? Was this new and he had to have it and put it on here? But it's an audio processor that manipulates sound by analyzing one audio signal, the modulator, and translating it and transferring the sonic characteristics to another, the carrier. So basically, it just makes the robot voice. That's what it is. Just tell it.
That's right.
That's it's a long explanation too. That's what the robot.
It's the robot
sounds
voice.
like.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
Well, it's not like John, but I think John could do it justice. Like if
Oh, he could.
were to sing the song.
Absolutely. It's just it's horn as horn on this one.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And it's I don't hate it, but I could see how if you were listening to this record in order as a Yes fan, thinking, well, now wait a minute, what is this?
Well, that's interesting because I think that Steve Howe, under or over, however you want to look at it, Trevor's voice actually works. I think Steve Howe against what he's
No,
doing
it's not.
works
It's
well.
not a bad song. I just think this has the most Buggles touch to it of any of the songs on the record.
Maybe with his voice, yes.
Yeah.
But when it builds to the big piano banging and then it has like the Yes dream sequence guitar stuff, like that's very Yes. And then, they kind of, during the long version, they start and stop.
Yeah.
And, there's and then burn, and you have to focus. You have to know exactly what you're doing to come in and out of those things.
I can't even imagine that. I can't because it's all counting in your head. I remember when my son was learning how to play drums. You always have to count, even if you're not playing. You have to count from the beginning, or you're going to get lost. And then,
and if the drummer's lost, everybody's fucked.
correct, right? Yeah, if you screw it up, yeah, you are the rock holding this together. So yeah, just the amount of musical prowess it takes to play these songs is off the charts.
And I love what Steve Howe did on this song. I think it's fantastic. I think he's really showcased, and he was really in the pocket. I mean, he famously has not gotten along with Anderson for a long time now. I think being the senior guy and being able to say, look, this is what I'm going to do, go into RAK in St. John's Wood and say, I know exactly what I'm going to lay down. He lays down all his stuff. They must have had some of the tracks made. And then he's like, okay, now I know what it is, and I can lay my stuff on it.
He didn't go in there cold. I'm sure there was some kind of skeleton for him to follow. But I always just kind of felt like they would record these all together just because of the interplay. How you would get that, trying to mix that had to be just a pretty big effort.
Had to be. Yeah, no doubt.
Hi, this is Jeff Downs, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf.
Now, Run Through the Light. Now, this one is definitely different to me because
Why would you say that?
Squire is on the piano and Horn is on the fretless bass.
So right there, that piece of information just makes me key right into this song. Okay, you know what? Now I'm going to listen to the bass almost by itself. And yeah, once you figure that out, this is literally the only track that does not feature Squire on bass in the Yes catalog.
Yeah, while he was alive. Yeah,
While
that's
he was-
for sure. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
While he was alive. You can really tell. It's not bad. It's just not Squire. He's on such another level of playing the bass.
That's
that
right.
you can tell, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it's either him not playing it or him playing it while he's doing, I don't know, driving a car or something. It's just
Right.
it's just so much more pushed back, more simplistic. It's a fretless bass, so it's kind of cool to hear him sliding around, but it's not Squire.
I love the sound of the fretless bass.
Yeah.
You can get these really cool sounds on it. It's different, but it's interesting.
Correct.
And Horn, of course, didn't want to do it. But Squire kind of insisted, and it's like,
Play,
well,
get over there and play it right now.
if Chris Squire says you're going to play the bass, I guess you kind of have to.
Right. And I would imagine he had prowess as a bass player. I would imagine that it was not like, well, I've never done this before. No, I know you can play the bass. Just get over there and fool around with it.
So there's a middle jam, and the bass is not Squire. It's obvious, like this is not Squire, but that means there's more Howe and Downs interplay because they don't have that whatever Chris Squire may have done there. So it gives them more of a time to shine.
Right. You're not fighting for air with Squire at this point in time.
Yeah.
Move like never-ending streams. Run through the light. Now everything is alright. Run through the light of day. Run to the light of night. And every movement made together.
And again, Trevor is singing up high again. This is another one that Jon Anderson could have figured out.
Right.
Again, I think this is more good, yes. And there may have been a single version of it somewhere. Like it wasn't necessarily released as a single, but I think that they did release it somewhere as a single.
Well, this one is what, 442 altogether. So I mean, it's definitely that's definitely in single length.
Yeah. And then on the 2004 version, there is a version called Dancing Through the Light.
Ooh.
That features Jon Anderson and Rick Wakeman. It's just a little different. I think it's maybe a little less grandiose, but you can hear it out there if you want to check that out. But to me, again, this is more good. Yes, when you think about Yes and what you want to hear from the keyboards and the guitar, the bass is not what you're looking for.
Well,
But the rest of it is.
right. Yeah. I mean, I think the bass is fine on this track. It's just not as grandiose as what Squire plays. But yeah, it is kind of an interesting change of pace. It's too bad we can't ask him about that, Chris Squire, because I'd really like to know why did you decide to do that? Hey, I've got an idea. I'll play the piano, let him play the bass. It just seems like an interesting choice.
Well, to hear Steve Howe tell it, Squire was probably stoned. And it's like, it seemed like a good idea at the time. But who knows?
That's probably what it came down to. Like I would think, oh no, he spent days thinking about this, and what it would sound like for him. Now like he said, he was probably really, it'd be great. You play the bass.
You play that fretless bass. Yeah. I'll just play this little piano bit here. Now it winds up with Tempest Fugit. And to me, this is a classic Yes song with all the right elements. It sounds so Yes that if you were to say, hey, I've never heard Yes, I don't know anything about them, play me a song that would be quintessential Yes, this might be the song I played.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
what would you play instead of this? Would you play Roundabout?
I would play.
Would you play Owner of a Lonely Heart? No, you wouldn't.
Well, but that's a whole nother conversation because, you talk about quintessential Yes. I mean, to me, that is quintessential Yes, because that's what I started with. But I mean, long distance,
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe something off of that. This is good, but remember, I guess Squire was done being stoned now because he's back on the bass and he's killing it on this track.
He's setting the tone, and everyone is in line behind him.
And the thing is, they're back to co-leads on this one, and for him to be able to sing and play the bass like that, and I've watched a live track of this thing. It's amazing because the bass part is very complicated, and to play it like it's nothing.
I know
it's crazy.
It's so good. It's sick, really. It's fantastic. Yeah. But that allows everyone to kind of jump in and do their thing. And I think that Alan White called this song his baby because he had done like the tracking for it. Or yeah, I mean, I think he really liked this. It was sketched out by Squire, Howe, and White, just the three of them in late 79 when they were kind of like not getting on with John and Rick. Of course, it's Latin for time flies. Steve will tell you it's derived from Squire's habit of always being late.
So it's an inside joke then, which I loved. You're breaking his balls because if you say, if you need him to be here by 10, tell him 9:30 because he's going to be late.
Or tell him 8. Because he's just not going to be there. But, you know, and then I saw the video of this kind of not that long ago for the first time. And yeah, you've got Trevor with his big nerdy glasses on.
Right. Which that's not, of all the people that wear things, as fashion statements, that's not Trevor Horn. You catch that thing from the side and they are very, very necessary. They're about 3 inches thick.
Right. Well, he could wear contact lenses maybe, but anyway.
I don't know if they make them like that.
Maybe they can't, or certainly not 45 years ago.
Right.
Maybe not, yeah. But no, this is such a jam. This gives Steve a chance to show stuff off. Jeff's got a chance to do that. Alan's doing his thing all over it, and yeah, Trevor's back to sounding like Jon Anderson again.
Right.
I didn't hear this for a long time. I never heard it growing up. I never heard it when I was in my 20s. I don't even know if I heard it in my 30s. And then when I heard it, I was like, God, that is really good. Yes. Why haven't I heard that before? It's like, well, it was because it was off this drama album, which didn't have Jon Anderson. They never played it live. I mean, except for this one tour. And then it was never revisited again until in the 2010s, really. So to me, it's a piece of gold. And yeah, if you say, hey, play me something that shows what Yes is quintessentially, because as much as I love Owner of a Lonely Heart, it's a different lineup, it's a different sound than what is typical Yes.
Right. It's almost a completely different band, even though most of the guys are still there. And that was the strange part for me, is to work it backwards from there. Like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't the same thing at all. No, dummy, this is the original. This is where they came from.
That's right. And I think the song is fantastic. And I hope they play it. I bet they don't, but you never know. You never know. And that's the original song. Now, they're more like, have we really got to go through this? It's almost a bit of a country song, fast-paced instrumental. You got song number 4, Satellite, which is big, slow bass. And it almost sounds like there's placeholders for things. And Steve Howe is exercising more than he's playing. Dance Through the Light was Anderson's version of Run Through the Light. There's Golden Age. There's In the Tower. There's Friend of a Friend. So there's a lot of extras, not to mention single edits of some of the other songs. So the deluxe version is worth listen, and I think you can get it on Spotify and other places like that, but I would definitely encourage you to listen to the whole thing.
It's funny when there was a time when all of this stuff was getting reissued, like for all bands, and some of them there's really nothing there. Like they'll put it like there's a live version or something like, okay, they really didn't have anything else. They've just kind of pad this out. This was not the case. I mean, you've got the single version, that's kind of cool. The tracking session, just interesting, a little window into how they made this. And then, a couple of other songs that you haven't heard before. To me, this is a cool reissue because it does add value instead of just trying to make me buy this again.
No, I totally agree with you there, yeah. And if you never had the original, it's perfect to pick up because you've got the original in good shape plus all this extra stuff. They eventually released this.
What is that?
This is Howe, Squire, White. They call it the More Drama Tour. It's a special edition limited CD because the fact of the matter is this kind of broke the band. They went out to tour from August through December. And though they sold out Madison Square Garden 3 times, it was hard for Trevor to sing in that high register every night for like more than 2 hours. It's tough. And so I think in North America, it was a success, but it wasn't as successful as we'd hoped. As you said, they'd already booked the tour before they made the album, and that's why they kind of had to rush together and get this album made. It's like, oh, we got 2 other guys? Sure, yeah, just bring them in. And I think that for the most part, American audiences were more receptive because they didn't really push the lineup change big. And to some people, they were like, they may have been surprised, but then some people may not have really noticed. But when they got to the UK, oh boy.
They did, in fact, notice.
Well, because the critics came out and just hammered it. You went away from Rick Wakeman? That's crazy. You don't have Jon Anderson's not going to say the same. So that really stirred the pot as far as getting the audience against them, Really?
Yeah.
And then they would scream shit at him on stage, like booing and jeering Trevor, especially Trevor. Jeff can hide behind 15 keyboards.
Right.
And plus, he's got long blonde hair. Rick had long blonde hair. Maybe you don't even notice, but this geek with glasses in front instead of the ethereal 4'11" Jon Anderson. Like, what in the world? No, get out of here. You're not Jon. And I don't know why you want to do that. Like, you pay money to go to see a show and you just walk in unhappy. You don't listen. You scream, "You're not the other guy." Doesn't make
Correct.
sense to me.
Right. Like you said, you've already paid your money. Maybe you're not super happy, but you know what? Maybe, I haven't seen these guys play live yet, Orange Whip, Orange Whip, Orange Whip.
Yeah.
Orange Whips. Let's just sit here and take it all in. Now, if you were a diehard fan of the band, yeah, maybe you were a little bit upset. Maybe you thought that perhaps they kept that information from you. And you may have bought tickets before you knew anything about this. So, But I mean, again, to me, I think I would just sit there and listen and then complain about it later if it was terrible. Or do you just sit there and say, hey, you know what? Give these guys a shot. This sounds okay. Do we know what the set list was? Was this pretty much this whole record? Or did they do classic Yes stuff? But you figure that's always what's going to happen with a new record. You're going to favor that heavily because this is your new deal.
So, God, they did play White Car a cappella. That's crazy.
Oh, right.
But and they also did Man in a White Car Suite, like you said, give Jeff a chance to really
Show off,
shine. Yeah. No, they did. I mean, they played 5 of the 6 songs off of Drama. It looks like most every night.
Okay.
But they kind of had to, I feel like, and they played stuff from everywhere. They played stuff from the Yes album, Close to the Edge, Fragile.
Okay.
Some of the others. I mean, it was kind of concentrated on the new one.
Right. But I mean, at that point in time, that's what most bands did. I mean, they wanted to push the new record, so you couldn't be that upset. But as long as they did some of the old stuff, I mean, what else do you want?
Well, yeah, exactly. They do Apocalypse and Yours Is No Disgrace. And You and I. Clap is Steve Howe's chance to shine, but
right.
They do Starship Trooper and Roundabout, so they do enough of it. But obviously, some people are going to like it, some people aren't. They did a bunch of nights at Hammersmith, which is always cool.
As we've talked about before, the UK audiences can be absolutely brutal. If they love you, you're the best, and if they don't, they will not hesitate to let you know.
To tell you, yeah,
you suck.
It's rough, yeah. So. Playing several nights at Madison Square Garden, getting awards. And you got to feel like Jeff and Trevor may have felt strange about that. Like, I'm getting an award for 16 sold out shows, but I'm only doing 3. The other 13, I was like, someplace else. I was in college for part of that,
Right.
So.
And were these 3 sold out shows already sold out before I even got into the band?
Yes, they were. So. But the fact of the matter is, Trevor didn't want to continue to be the lead singer. And so they go through December and the band breaks up. And Squire and White kind of do a thing with Jimmy Page, XYZ.
Did that never come out, or what was going on with that?
It's never come out. I've never heard any of it. There may be a way to hear some of it, but that never comes out. The Buggles go back to make their second album.
Didn't Jeff, didn't he join another band?
Well, yes, and so did Steve Howe. So
yeah.
After they did the second Buggles album, Adventures in Modern Recording, Jeff and Trevor kind of got sideways with each other a little bit. Jeff left because he was going to go do Asia with Steve Howe. So that kind of left Trevor to do it on his own. Some of the tracks were written and produced by Jeff with Trevor, but Bruce Woolley was back and was contributing, and they had some other writers and producers as well. So while I think it got some pretty decent reviews, especially outside of America, it didn't do that great. And that's when Trevor started to realize, it's probably best for me to be in the studio as a producer. And so, but then, yes, of course, our favorite prog pop band, Asia, came to be with Jeff Downes and Steve Howe, going with John Wetton and Carl Palmer to found Asia. And in 82, yes, they were the biggest thing in the U.S., #1 selling album of the year. Their tour was huge. But in 83, Yes got Jon Anderson back in the band and brought in this South African, Trevor Rabin, who apparently jammed with Asia for a minute or two before Steve Howe said, no, I'm the guitar player. You go away. So he's like, okay, fine. I'll go take your old gig and make an album bigger than you ever made in Yes before 90125. So it's kind of that rare time where the sum of the parts was actually greater than the whole, and you got two killer albums out of it.
Right. Interesting. I wonder how Howe took that when he figured that out. Oh, you know what? I'm going to be here. You go away. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go. You're doing what? Yeah. Well, you're not here anymore.
And they were going to call it something else until record company got in and said, no, this is Yes. Okay. We're calling it Yes. And boy, they glad they did. Of course, Rick Wakeman, who didn't play on either Asia or 90125, calls 90125 the reason that Yes can continue to this day.
Correct. Well, it's the reason that you and I know who they were to begin with, because that album was so big in '83.
So huge. So look, I call myself a Yes fan, even though I came in for what a lot of people would call the offshoot, the pop version of Yes, with the album cover that was not Roger Dean at all, with these, Trevor Rabin, who's not even English, right? He's South African. That's when we came in. I still have a lot of love for that album. But to me, this drama album is better classic Yes. 90125 is great, and it has more of an 83 new
Rock
wave
feel,
rock pop thing.
Singles feel to it.
Yeah, that's right. But this drama album is classic Yes, and honestly, I count it among my very, very favorites.
I think that if you give this record a chance, you will enjoy it. I think if you're a Yes fan, if you're a new wave fan, you will like this. I think this one just got stigmatized because it was the only record they made, and they kind of put it away. Well, they didn't kind of put it away. They did put it away.
Yep.
So you weren't like, oh yeah, I know that one song off of this because I heard them play it live. No, you didn't, because it's gone. But yeah, go back and listen to it. You will like it. Give it a try. And that's what makes me. You said talk. I think we need to take that out for a spin and see what happens.
Well, in the age of grunge, they probably didn't fit in very well, and they did the whole Union thing, which was a cool tour, but a bad album. But, again, this shows some dichotomy in the UK and the US, bud, because it went silver drama in UK, didn't do very well in the US, but then 90125 comes along, United States triple platinum.
Yeah.
Owner of a Lonely Heart's a huge single. In the United Kingdom, sold over 100,000 maybe, went gold. So they were like, I think the English pub were like, you're not this.
Right.
You're that big jam band from the 70s, and I want new stuff, and I want you retooling to sound like the 80s. Whereas in the U.S., like, oh, that's a great song. Yeah. Bring it. Let's do it.
Which is too bad. It just shows you how much marketing and perception shapes this thing.
Could you tell during that segment that I liked this album, Drama by Yes? It's not one that I knew growing up. It's not one that I got into until very late in life. Then as soon as I heard it, I'm like, well, yeah, that's great classic Yes. Why didn't this go anywhere? And I think it's basically because they didn't have a good lead single, and what they chose did not go anywhere. Between the fact that Jon Anderson had left the band and Rick Wakeman, that was just a bridge too far for some people. Like, no, you've changed too many times. You've changed the singer. I am not interested. I think English fans really gave it to him, especially after your none so kind press really stuck it to them. Although they didn't really stick it to them for being different. They stuck it to them for sounding a lot like Yes, from what I can understand. And I get it. Trevor Horn is not Jon Anderson, and he wasn't a perfect fit as the lead singer. But having the rest of those three, Alan White, Chris Squire, and Steve Howe, there to set the tone, and then have Jeff Downs, a fantastic keyboardist, and now the longest consecutively tenured keyboardist in the history of the band. They made some great music. I know it was hard for him to kind of get up there, him being Trevor, and squeeze those notes out, and I think by the time they got to the UK, he was a little squeezed out. He didn't have a whole lot more to give. But it's sad that people whose lives are meaningless are nasty to someone who's trying to give them a good show, and doing a pretty good job. Maybe not doing exactly what you wanted, but I also understand if you bought the tickets months and months before, thinking you're getting the Rick Wakeman and Jon Anderson Yes, that you might be a little upset when you have the Buggles in their place. I get that too. But I think you missed out because this album is really very, very good. And I don't know what it was like for Trevor singing the other Yes songs. I think to the average fan would have passed off as great Yes. And to the discerning fan, once you got over the fact that it was going to be a little bit different in the vocals, I think you'll find that it's a killer album, one that deserves a good spot in their pantheon of albums, but one that never will, just because at the time it was maligned, it did not sell well, and then for the next 38 years, they didn't play it live because Jon Anderson refused to play it when Steve was firmly in control of the band. And for a while there, they had 80% of that lineup in Yes. Why not revisit it? And if you're like me and Jackson and you came in at Owner of a Lonely Heart and 90125, at the time this would have seemed different to you. But I think now, being older, having heard their entire catalog, especially the stuff in the 70s that was so proggy and cutting edge, I don't know, I just feel like this one fits in really well, and I think it'll always be overlooked, and I don't think it should be. And I even didn't like the cover at first, and now the cover has even grown on me. So this is a little bit of a sleeper. I guarantee you most of you had overlooked this for a while. I hope that by listening, you found something about it that you like. Because that's kind of what the show is all about. Yes, we like to see what's different between the success in the US and the UK. And the tour was great in the US, but less successful in the UK. And Yes enjoyed huge success in the UK, and then it kind of faded, whereas it kind of grew and grew in the US, culminating with 90125. And eventually the Union tour, which actually did very well. It's why Yes can still tour today. But it's fun to uncover these hidden gems. It's like, of course you know Yes, but do you know drama? Do you know the lineup? Do you know what was going on? Do you know those songs? Now you do. And we want to know, folks, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? Email us and let us know. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. You can let us know the bands, the albums, the tours, the books, the DVDs, the live concerts, the rock properties you want to hear us talk about here on the show. We implore you to please download and subscribe wherever you like to get your podcasts. Those downloads are the lifeblood for us. We appreciate a couple folks who recently said they went ahead and downloaded all of them on a couple of different apps. That's huge, actually. It really helps kind of jump our numbers up. And the more numbers we get, the easier it is to book cool guests and to find more rock and rollers like you. If you really want to help us, hey, go out and give us a 5-star review. It just means the world to us. It does help us find more rock and rollers like you. And if you send it our way, we might just read it on an episode. Thanks as always to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family. And thanks to our worldwide sponsor, rarevinyl.com, where if you use the code UGLY, you can save 10% off one entire order. And they have tons and tons of Yes and Yes related stuff. That's it for this week, folks. Got some live concerts coming up. We got some special guests coming up. Got some killer albums to review, so you're going to have to stay tuned. And to all you rockers all around the world, be cool and keep doing what you do to keep rock alive.